So first and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for this 15-minute Feature Friday. Today we'll be looking at alarms and alarm monitoring within the Milestone Smart Client, but also some configuration within the management client. This is being brought to you today by myself, Alex Lafreniere. I am a solutions engineer for Canada East as well as Northeastern United States or New England. And I'm being joined by Edgardo Lopez. Edgardo, would you like to introduce yourself?
By all means, thank you, Alex. Hi, everyone. Welcome again to 15 Minutes Feature Friday. My name is Edgardo Lopez. As Alex indicated, I'm the manager of pre-sales engineering for LATAM. I worked very closely with the US team, and here we are. We're going to be talking about the alarms today, and there is a lot to talk about, but we're going to try to concentrate into a particular type of configuration in order to make it easy to understand, but it will be a lot more that we can later on cover, or you guys can also cover by accessing YouTube, and there are quite a few videos there. But anyway, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So today what we're going to be looking at is what are alarms and how they exist within the Milestone product. We're going to be walking through creating some alarms. Edgardo's going to show you on associating maps with the alarms. We're also going to touch on a few items like utilizing time profiles as well as generating email notifications. Now, we're going to touch on those in sense that how they are attributed to the alarms and how they're assigned to alarms, but we're not going to go into full details on creating time profiles or notifications. We're going to leave that for another Feature Friday session. And then we're also going to look at handling alarms within the smart client and then talk about a few of the overall troubleshooting features if for any reason you seem to be running into issues with both the configuration or utilization of alarms. So first and foremost, let's talk about where alarms exist in the Milestone products. Unfortunately, our free version, XProtect Essential Plus, does not support any of the alarm features that we are going to be walking through today. That being said, every product beyond that features either the full feature set or a small subset of alarms and alarm monitoring. The key differences there being inside of, again, Corporate, Expert, Professional Plus, every feature is going to be in the system. When we look at Professional, it has every feature except for the association of time profiles. Express Plus has, again, all of the features. And then in the older version of XProtect Express, it's a smaller subset of the features. So we're missing things like the instructions, time profiles, the general management and notifications, and customizable options like alarm handling and reporting and sounds. So that hopefully gives you a better understanding of it's pretty much supported in every product except for Essentials Plus. And then between Express and Professional, there are a few features missing, but in all the other Plus products, as well as Expert and Corporate, the full feature set is there. So in a nutshell, alarms in Milestone can be thought of similar to rules or a rule engine in the Milestone, except alarms are event-driven alerts that notify people. And that's the way I prefer to think of it, is it's a rule that requires a level of human either intervention or acknowledgement. And it's not just an automated. Rules are used to automate processes, motion analytics, things like that. Alarms do virtually the same thing, but present something to the user, and then they can handle that, add notes, and so on, something that we're going to look at today. Alarms can be triggered by internal events or your system events, things like loss of communications with cameras, recording server disk warnings or errors, high CPU usage on some of your Milestone servers. These are all things that can trigger alerts or a subset of things that can trigger alerts. And this could be handled by surveillance techs or members of IT. And then on the flip side, for the security operators, surveillance operators, alarms can also be triggered from camera analytics, from integrations such as access control, and many others. And these can all then trigger workflows within an organization to handle and document those alerts and alarms as they exist within the system. As a general overview in terms of creating an alarm, all alarms are created from the management client, and I have an example of that on the right-hand side. Alarms can then also trigger follow-up or can trigger cascading alarms or other events that can trigger. So you can build alarms around existing workflows. An example, a forced door open generates an alarm. If that alarm is not handled by a person after a set amount of time, it can then trigger, let's say, a notification event to send an email out and like that. So there's workflows can be built into the alarm process. We can also, as mentioned earlier, associate alarms with time profiles so that they are only active within certain times. Let's say a door open or a motion event on a camera, but you only need to be concerned with it after hours or during non-operating hours. So we can tie in those time profiles to help better manage alarms and analytics as they come in. And to present additional information to the user, we can generate maps from the system to present with the alarm in the alarm preview, so that it also allows them to get a much better and quicker understanding of where these events are taking place. As the audio feature, as I mentioned at the end there, in the Corporate, Expert, and Professional Plus systems, you can add on your own customizable audio sound depending on the alarm priority, so that when alarm triggers, it doesn't have to be a visual pop-up. It can simply trigger a sound which can then alert staff that there is an alarm that needs to be looked at. And again, these are tied to your alarm priorities, which allow you to use sounds to identify the criticality of the alarm. Okay. So two of the features that we talked about a little bit, these that are out of order, are notifications and time profiles. Again, these are features that we're not going to go deep into, but again, can be associated with an alarm. In terms of a notification, it's using an existing email service, typically the internal corporate email, to send messages from a Milestone system based on a triggering alarm and get information out of the system via email. There are two prerequisites before you can start using this with an alarm. The first one is to configure the connection between Milestone and an SMTP service. This can be directly to the email or even an SMTP forwarder. And as you can see in the screenshot, we do support secure connections to your system. And once you have that set up, the next step is to create what we call a notification profile. This allows you to identify who the recipients are, enter the subject line for what's going to be sent, as well as start building the message so that when the email goes out, it's not a generic email. It can be more targeted towards the type of event by using things like insertable fields, pulling data out of the alarm, placing it into the email so that that email is now referenced directly to the alarm that triggered the event in the first place. Similar to notifications, time profiles would need to be configured ahead of time. This is, again, all done within your management client. And this allows you to dictate when alarms are active within a time profile. The generic time profile is always, so that they are always ready to trigger. But again, we can do time profiles based on hours of operation, weekend hours, even directly relate them to length of day. So daylight hours versus nighttime can trigger different alerts depending on requirements. So now we're actually going to walk through the basic steps on creating an alarm within the management client, and I will ask Edgardo if you can take over for me and show everybody how to create the alarms within the management client.
Excellent, Alex. Very good. Okay, let's get started here. Could you bring the next slide? Excellent. Okay, first of all, everybody, you need to keep in mind two applications that you need to have in order to be able to set up the alarms and also view the result of that alarm. So first of all, you need to be able to have access to the management client, have the proper rights to come in and be able to create alarms or change alarms, do any modifications to that, okay? Also, keep in mind that you need to be able to access the Spark client and as well have the proper access in order to be able to see the alarm tab and things along those lines. So right now, let's open the management client, okay? So as you see on your right of the screen, you have the management client. Okay, keep in mind that this interface that we're showing here is the one from corporate. In general terms, all the solutions that have the plus, okay, as part of the name, will have the same type of interface. The standard versions, if you want to call it that, or the previous versions that we had of Professional, for example, and Express, their trees is slightly different, and when you get into some of the functionality, it may look slightly different, okay, but the features are there for the solutions that Alex indicated to you guys before, based on the chart that we have. Also, by the way, I would advise everyone to be able to download the comparison chart that we have that will compare features among the products. So you're going to be able to check not only all the features that the alarm have to offer, but also several other features that you may be interested on that each one of the solutions have the ability to perform. Okay, so now let's go back to the screen. So basically, when you go into the alarm section, it will be at a lower part. I'm sorry, the arrow was supposed to be on higher, but I got a couple of things modified and moved away. So when you go to that area, you go to the alarm definition, as you can see on this particular screen. You right click on it, and on the top drawing, and you're going to see add new. Okay, as soon as you add new, the screen on your right, which is showing on the lower drawing, it activates and will allow you to start putting information in. Okay, next screen. Perfect. So now the first thing you're going to do is you're going to assign a name. By default, it just tells you alarm definition. Okay, so now you go to the right side of the screen where it says name. In this particular case, we're going to be using the access control demo that we have in order to do the demonstration on how to create an alarm. So we're going to have a particular type of event. This particular one is going to be a door force open. So the title for this particular alarm is door force open. Then we have to define the event itself, right? As you can see, if when you go under trigger event, you have several to choose from. Keep in mind that this is very versatile and you will have a lot of different triggering events, but some of them may not be activated, okay? If the integration is not in place, okay, or may not be working. So you need to make sure that everything else that you need is prepared, as in the case of the for example, the time profile and the email profile for other part of the application. But as well as that, you need to make sure that the interfaces are available that you want to use as your trigger. In this particular case, we're going to go ahead and say access control event category. Okay, now we go to the next screen. And under triggering event, we want to go into alarms. Again, the arrow is out of position, but we're going to be using alarm. We can have access granted. So that means that when the person with the right card comes in, we're going to get an alarm, okay? Or access request, okay? Or error, or any one of those, okay? In this particular case, we want to use the alarm. So next thing you want to do is to the source. What's the source of that particular event? Okay, and in this case, we have two doors configured into access control system, which in this particular case, by the way, we're using the access control from Access Communication, the A1001 controller. So we have, and it handles two doors. So we're going to go to door number one, and we're going to have a couple of things left as default. We're not going to be using a time profile in this particular case for, in the interest of time. We want to make it as simple as possible, or also for you guys to be able to understand it without getting into too much of details here. So we're going to leave the time profile as always. So this means that the alarm is going to be triggered all the time, and then the operator action within a minute. You also have the ability to change that if you want to. Okay. On the next one, now we're going to be associating a couple of things. The first thing that we're going to be associating, and this is always optional, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it makes a lot of sense that you do, is the camera, for example. Okay, so what we do is we hit select, and you're going to have a screen, a view, as it shows over here. Then it's going to show you which cameras are available in the system for you to be able to associate with the alarm that you're just creating. Keep in mind, this is a demo, so I only have one particular camera identified in the system, but you could have a huge list of cameras with a huge list of servers. Okay, so it could be a little confusing if you don't have it properly documented. After you do that, okay, and you associate that particular camera, in this case was an access camera as well, we want to associate a map. Again, this is not mandatory, but it is a good idea because it gives us, more information. You're going to be able to see what's going on and what the alarm is all about. So we have a map that we put together ahead of time. Okay, this particular map is identified with an ID number 962270 that is going to show us where the camera is located. Okay, and the type of alarm and the triggering. Okay, so let's go ahead with the next slide. Now, last but not least, okay, is what do you want to do when that alarm happens? By default, you're going to be notified under the Sparkline, and we're going to see this in a few minutes. But also, you may want to be able to do something else. You may want to be able to send an email, as Alex indicated before. And as long as you have the SMTP server and everything configured, and you have a couple of profiles, then you can assign the proper profile. Okay. But then again, you may want also to maybe set off an alarm, of sound alarm like a siren, or maybe turn on a light, or maybe close a gate. Okay, and depending on what the alarm is all about, you may have all that abilities, and you can associate a device. In this particular case, I associated the same camera I'm actually using to provide a view, and I'm going on output number 1. So it's a digital dry contact closure, output number 1, but you're not obligated to use that same camera. You can actually use any IO device in the system, and it could be across the world for that matter. Okay, we don't care where that's located as long as it's been identified. Okay, and you have access to the device. You can put anything you want over here, but again, you can also have an event, create a custom event, or send an email. I mean, it's very flexible. You can do a few things with it. So let's go to the next one. Now, we have already created the alarm profile using the management the management interface. Now we're going to go to Sparkline and take a look at what we have created. As you can see on the screen now, that's a view of the Sparkline. And on the top, you're going to see a tab that says Alarm Manager. Okay. Right now, it doesn't have anything on the screen. This could be because maybe there are no alarms coming in. Okay. Or maybe there was a mistake made or an error made during the process of putting together the profile. So you may need to go back and fix it. Okay. This particular case, there are actually no events yet. So it's going to be clean. Now on the next screen, what I did was, as you can see in the picture, we have a demo that we use to show people around how the access control interfaces with us. And there is a small door there simulating a real one. So basically, instead of sliding my ID card, I just open the door or force the door open. Okay, when that happens, it's going to create an alarm. Okay, and that alarm is going to show everything we did before when we were configuring the profile. It's going to show the map, as you can see on your left, okay, and it's going to show video of the camera assigned to that. Typically, you can have one camera looking at the front of the door or the back of the door, or in some cases, you want to have two cameras. Okay, so that means that you have the ability to actually show more than one camera. We're showing only one over here, but you can actually show more than one camera. One may be seeing the person from the back, okay, on the front door, and the next camera could be seeing the person as it goes through the door. So you can see the back and the front of the person and the face, of course. So that gives you that ability. And also, you can move back and forth the timeline and see the process, what happened from the moment that the alarm was triggered, and a few minutes later. As you can see here now, my hand is not in the picture anymore, but you can see the door is open. Okay, showing you that the door was forced open. Okay, so all that video is going to be available to you and the information there. So now let's go next. Now, when that happens, now the operator has several options to follow, okay? The operator can acknowledge the alarm, that's one option. It can set the alarm on hold, close the alarm, which basically is gonna clear the alarm from the screen, okay? Or edit the information, disable the alarm, or print it. So if you go to the next one, okay. So the first one, acknowledging the alarm. What that's gonna do is under the column owner, the operator is going to basically put his name there automatically. The system would automatically put it. So, okay, this is the operator that acknowledged the alarm. So we want to keep record of who actually acknowledged the alarm in this particular case. So under owner, now it's going to be that operator. In my case, is EJL, which is basically my three-letter code for my name. Okay. Now, if they want to put the alarm on hold, as soon as they do that, when it says state name, it's going to say on hold. So this alarm right now was put on hold by this particular operator, okay, for whatever reason. You might want to see it later, or show it to a supervisor, or whatever the case may be. If on the other hand, it could be a false alarm, okay, or maybe they were doing some testing, or the alarm was triggered by somebody trying to open the door, but everything is fine, not a big deal. So you can actually go ahead and right click, close the alarm, and then the alarm, as you can see on the lower picture, is going to be clear from the screen. Okay, next. Now the other options. You can edit the alarm. So if you see on the right side, we have an image that will show up when you pick edit. So you can add information. Okay, you can add instructions on how to handle this alarm. You can also reassign the alarm on the right side. If you see, you have a drop-down menu that says assign to. You can reassign the alarm. The state can be changed. The priority level could be changed. Okay, so there are several other things that you can do here when you edit this particular alarm. If on the other hand, let's say that they're working on an area of the building and they may be triggering this alarm all the time because there are some workers there, the door is actually unlocked, but you have a magnetic sensor that is going to be showing every time somebody opens that alarm. So you may want to be able to disable that particular alarm for a while. You can disable it in minutes. As you can see on the left side, you have a smaller drawing that shows you, what's available to you. So you can disable 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or you can actually go on disabled units and change and say, okay, for this whole day, we're going to disable that particular alarm so we don't get bothered by a bunch of alarms during the whole day, which are not really, meaningful. Somebody's working there, so workers are going back and forth. Okay, so you have that ability. If on the other hand, it's a real alarm, or maybe it's a test, or whatever the case may be, but you want to keep a record of what happened here and print it out, you can go into the print option. When you reach the print option, you can add some notes to it, okay, and say, well, this was a test, or maybe there is something here that we don't know what's happening. The door is acting funny. It's showing maybe the sensor could be damaged. We need to send somebody to fix it. It will give you the door. As you can see, the source is the door. It gives you a picture on the alarm report. It gives you also the date, okay, the operator, okay, printed by the operator that is actually printing this report. Is going to give you some history, as well. And you can do a page setup. You can do a preview of how this is going to look like. The actual printout is not going to look like this. Okay, it's going to look more like a Word document. Okay, or you can go right ahead and print. When you pick print, you actually have the ability to print to a PDF file. Okay, and then that PDF file can be sent via email to anybody that you need to, or you can actually create a physical hard copy by assigning it to any particular printer in the system. Okay, so you have those options available to the operator. Okay, next. That's as simple as you can see. It is extremely easy to set up an alarm. Again, it's very flexible. So you have also the ability to set up the alarm with other trigger events like motion, for example. Okay, you can see if you have an LPR, a license plate recognition interface with any one of our partners or our own application, you can actually set up that when an automobile is found in the database, you want to trigger an alarm. Okay, that alarm will maybe close the gate or turn on a light or something like that. So the alarm system is extremely easy to work with. You just have to make sure that the trigger event that you want to use is actually available to you, is active. The devices are all in operation. If you're sending a result of the alarm to another device, as I mentioned to you before, that device is also available to you. So as long as you check these things, everything will work very well and very easy. Um, Alex, do you want to go into the troubleshooting or do you want to add any comments to what I said? I'm sure we have a lot to talk about if we want to.
Yeah, I definitely understand, and I appreciate that walkthrough. We have run just a little bit over the planned 15 minutes, so I did want to open that up. If there are any questions, please feel free to add that into the questions or the chat box. Now we will leave the session open for a little bit, and as you mentioned, when we talk about the troubleshooting, the one thing that we really wanted to point out for everybody is that the alarms feature inside of Milestone is handled through the events service with the management server. So either that is on a single physical box or spread across multiple boxes. It's important to note that if the event service in the milestone management server is in any way not functioning, that will not allow alarms to run, operate, or even allow access to the configuration. So it's if you're dealing with a deployment where all of the servers are split across multiple servers, and for whatever reason you don't have access to alarms or the service doesn't seem to be triggering, the one key point to look at is the status of not the management server itself, but the events service either running on that management server or on a separate physical server. That's going to be your first step in terms of troubleshooting. With that being said, that brings us to what I will say is a loose quote, 15-minute feature Friday. We'll leave this open for a few more minutes if you guys have any questions at all. Either post them again here in the chat, in the questions box, or you always have the option of following up with your local reps, CBMs, or solutions engineers, and we can answer those questions as they come. But at this point, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'd like to first thank Edgardo for your time today and that walkthrough, and thank you to all those that were able to join us today and walk through the alarms and alarm monitoring feature within Milestone.
Yeah, my pleasure, Alex. I really enjoyed the experience, and everybody, as I indicated at the beginning, there is a lot to do with these alarms. You can go to YouTube and do a search for a Milestone X Protect alarms, and you're going to see a few video available to you that you can actually look into, and they address different ways of configuration that I think would be nice to know. Okay, guys. If there are no more questions, have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.